I think the reason I try to tell people to sketch is usually the field adjuster that's showing up can't submit his estimate to the carrier if it's not sketched.
And I remember when I first started, they're just like, show me something. I'm just like, I need to show them something. Where can I show? They couldn't figure it out. But as you get better, but yeah, help the adjusters, help you, help the client,
How is anybody going to know when they're reviewing this on the other side, the accuracy of what you're writing, right? You've got a room and you just labeled it living room and you're asking for 250 square feet of tile. Well, how do I know it's 250 square feet of tile? You've got no dimension.
Hey, if I have a proof of loss to say $20,000 and things come up and we have to write for more, is that okay? I said, absolutely, that is okay. It's the other way around that you can't do it.
You're making concessions for the betterment of the claim to get it settled for your client, because cash in hand is better than waiting a year to get an extra $2,000 or $3,000, right?
You're
making a smart decision for your client.
I mean, I had the longest conversation yesterday with a desk adjuster because she's about to go on vacation, and we were just laughing, man, just going back and forth. And I mean, we had a very pleasant conversation, and frankly, she got up to $33,000 of my $36,000 estimate.
Listen, you got to be careful with estimates, right? I know that there's in some states that if you make modifications to the pricing on that estimate and you don't have justification why you made that modification to that estimate, the state can actually charge you with fraud. There's some states that will go that route. And I know you're still working on trying to make sure that even if they invoke that right to repair, that the homeowner gets taken care of, right? You're still trying to do the right thing for the homeowner, because maybe you didn't make what you were going to make on this file, but by taking care of that person and making sure that they're taking care of property, guess what? That person is going to refer you to somebody else. You're going to refer you to somebody else, and it's going to pay dividends down the road because you did the right thing for the homeowner.
What's up, advocates, and welcome back to another episode of the Claims Game podcast. Now, before I get into our very special guest, Mario Rios, I just want to let you know that we've got some really great sponsorship opportunities available right now. We've got different levels of sponsorships, and you could be a sponsor of the Claims Game podcast, where we give you that shout out and let you know and let people know that you are the official sponsor of this podcast. We also have the Commercial Claims Show, where we'll give you that same shout out before every single show. We've got the meetups that you could sponsor. We could put your information on the website, and we could also give you monthly shout outs on social media. So if you are interested in becoming an official sponsor of the Commercial Claims Advocate, please reach out to me and reach out to us. You can find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn. You can send us a message online, whatever you want. You can find out some more information on that on commercialclaimsadvocate.com to see if you could become an official sponsor. So yeah. All right, so today we've got Mario Rios on the show. Mario Rios is not only a colleague, but he's also a friend. We've been working together now. He's been in the business for about 13 years, same as me, but we met at around 2017, and we've been working together ever since. He's a professional estimator, an expert estimator. He's the owner of Claim Preparation Experts. Mario has really been able to carve a niche out in regards to just being an estimator. He's not a public adjuster. He's just an estimator. It's what he does. He does estimates for the carrier. He does estimates for public adjusters. He does estimates for attorneys. He's also a state licensed appraiser and umpire. And not only that, but now he's also actually has been awarded the title from a court-ordered judge to as an expert. He's an expert witness as well. So he holds a lot of hats right now, and it's just basically because of the experience he's got in this industry for the last 13 years as an estimator. It's really amazing. Super knowledgeable guy. I use him for all of my estimates, especially in the Miami area. That's where he lives. But he does estimates all over the country: California, Texas, Indiana, North Carolina, Florida, everywhere. So he's also an expert on our show, in our course. So if you were to take the Commercial Claims Advocate course that we provide, he is one of the experts that we have on to talk shop about estimates, about properly sketching, about properly scoping, about properly putting line items that you're supposed to put in when you're doing different things and you're replacing different stuff. So I think you're going to enjoy this. We talk about all of that stuff. We talk about arguments for different things and different line items, negotiating with the insurance company, what to put in, what not to put in, and the overall appraisal and umpire industry as well. So a really cool podcast, really great conversation. I really enjoyed it. When you get a chance, reach out to Mario. He's a tremendous help, a tremendous source for assistance. So you could find Mario on Facebook. You could find Mario probably on LinkedIn. And again, his name of his company is Claim Preparation Expert. So reach out to him. He's always willing to help. So please enjoy the conversation with my man, Mario Rios.
Welcome to the Claims Game Podcast with Vince Perry. Get all the tips you need from insurance claim advocates and professionals and grow your public adjusting career to the next level. And now the commercial claims advocate, Vince Perry.
Mario.
Good morning, buddy. That intro's got me a little hyped. That was nice.
Did you like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's what you get. That's top dollar stuff on Fiverr. It's really incredible. And you can have it done in less than 5 days.
I like it.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. It's another day in lovely, rainy South Florida, which only means we're going to have more claims coming our way soon.
Why does it rain so much in Miami? I moved to Tampa, and let me tell you something. It doesn't rain nearly as much in Tampa as it does in Miami. I don't get it.
But when you guys get rain, it floods. Tampa floods really easy, I think.
All right.
Man, it was bad yesterday. Like, there was a couple of warehouses where literally, like, the roofs went off, and they were modified bit. So I'm not talking shingles, and those are always the hardest to get to fly off. There was a couple places yesterday. They even think there was a tornado touchdown. So,
dude, where's the referrals, bro? Let's go. Let's get this thing
it just
going.
happened yesterday. I mean, when they come in, you got to give it 24 hours, right? But
this is true.
Yeah, there was some stuff going down yesterday.
What kind of wind speeds are we talking about? Do you know?
I don't know, but there must have been some good gusts, truthfully, because it was all over the news last night, man. It was when I walked out of the courthouse yesterday, it was a fun drive back from Broward to Dade County. It was pouring.
Look, you talk about flooding. I mean, it's a fact. South Beach is going to be underwater probably in 10 years.
Without a doubt.
Maybe before that. I was looking have you seen the flash flood that they have like every year? It's like every year that's a rising tide that comes up and it covers all of South Beach.
So I did a claim for an attorney. I don't remember who the attorney was because I did for so many. On Purdy Avenue on South Beach. I know you know Purdy. There's a Purdy Lounge and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, good times. Good
years
times.
Years ago, the city of Miami Beach actually fixed the drain line. The drain issue because they always used to flood there so bad.
I remember when they were fixing it. What a mission driving through that place.
Okay, well, when the city did that, they actually raised the street elevation, right? So they had one of those major floods that occurred, and a lot of the businesses in that area flooded out. Well, the carrier, they put in these claims for flood claims. When the carriers came out, they said, hey, these businesses are now below grade. That's not what you're insured for. You never advised us that the street level changed. So the carriers denied all the claims because they said that the businesses were now basements. There was exclusions for basements on the policies, and they blamed the city for raising the street elevation and not advising the businesses that they needed to contact their carriers to advise them that there was a change of grading on the classification of the businesses.
Wait a minute. If anything, you're mitigating it though, right? I mean, not mitigating because mitigating is after a loss occurs, but at least you are, doing what you can to prevent further damage in case something happens. That's crazy.
Yeah, hold on. They ended up in litigation from what I know, but the carrier's position was, we insured street level businesses. You raised the street 1.5 feet and you've now, for all intentional purposes, created below grade businesses that we were never advised that was the case.
So now that they're basements, that doesn't make any sense. That's ridiculous.
That's the position the flood carrier took on all the claims. Everything that happened there got denied.
First of all, that's complete bullshit. Second of all, the other part.
I hear you. I get where they're coming from, but it's also, complete and utter BS. Like, how is the business owner supposed to control what the city's doing with the grading outside?
That's BS. And the fact that you would raise the streets instead of putting some form of barrier like a little dam or something to stop the water from rising. I mean, that's the best way to do it. I don't understand why they want to raise the streets, cause all that commotion that I believe was going on for about 2 years. Every time I had a claim in South Beach, it was just the worst driving through Alton Road. Was it Alton or was it? Yeah, it was Alton, right?
It was Alton, the entire connection, but on Alton, they didn't raise the street level. On the Purdy Avenue street, they did because they put in larger drains. I think to accommodate the fact that there was a couple of buildings coming in as well. So they actually increased the size of the street drains. And in order to accommodate those, they ended up having to raise the street level.
That's dumb. So yesterday there was 26 mile per hour gusts. We had an average of about 15 mile per hour winds in Miami yesterday.
I think the bulk of it was up in like the Broward, Pembroke Park area.
Well, yeah, I mean, I put in my home address, my mom's house address. I don't know what zip code it is up there in Broward, but I just put in where I used to live. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand. In Miami, it's just like brutal. Every time I go there, it just rains. Single.
We got 80% chance of rain today, so these roofs are going to start leaking again.
Oh my goodness, yeah. No, here it's not that bad. Honestly, I don't know if it's just because we're in the West Coast, we're right here in the Gulf, or just I don't understand. But no, it's really not that bad. It's a lot of sunny days. I mean, we had a drought just until last week.
It seems like it scoots past you guys and then goes up to like New Orleans, Texas, and that kind of stuff.
1908 was the last time Tampa had a severe storm. 1908. If anything, though, that means Tampa's due.
Guess I'll have to make the drive over to keep you on your toes.
Oh, it's going to be off the chain. If there is a storm in Tampa with the connections that I've made over the last, 3.5 years, it's going to be pretty crazy. But honestly, at this point, with everything that we've got going on, right? I've got the course, I've got all the social media stuff. I've brought you in on the ride to really have some fun with this. I think we're getting some pretty good recognition where it gets to the point where if we do get a storm in Florida, it's going to be a lot busier than Irma was. I mean, Irma, I was swamped, but I think it's going to be double that.
Man, I was swamped with Irma. With Irma, I mean, as you know, we usually do like 20 to 40 a week. After Irma hit, I was getting 20 or 30 requests a day.
I was getting 10 a day.
It was pretty insane. Like to the point where and I've got staff, as you know, it's not just me. So I've got employees that are running around. And at the time, there was 6 of us running around, documenting losses, going to property, sketching them to get ready to write the estimates. And it still wasn't enough for the amount of requests that we were getting on a daily basis. I turned down business from, law firms and adjusters because we couldn't keep up the volume.
I consider myself a pretty healthy eater, but when you're handling a storm, there's no time. The only time you have is for McDonald's or Burger King.
Yep. Yeah. I'm not as healthy of an eater, but I can't bring food with me. My wife makes fun of me all the time. I don't like to eat cold food. Like if we made something the night before, I'm not taking that out for lunch the next day because I'm on the road. I'm not going to get to heat it, right? So you're right. You end up just like grabbing whatever 5-minute meal you can, so you can just keep running around. I mean, I know on the estimating side of stuff, I think the most I did in one day after the hurricane, I think I did like 10 houses in one day, and it was complete and utter overkill. Everybody was doing anywhere between 5 to 6 houses a day. I did 10 one day, and it was like insane.
And it's always in the middle of the heat of the summer, brutally hot, brutally humid, absolutely ridiculous. I remember I had a pair of jeans on the first day, never wore those jeans again because it was just, I bought a new pair of jeans for triple the price because I knew it would be more flexible, more breathable, and I just chose to wear shorts a lot of the days because after a while it's just so hot.
You guys make fun of me. I wear my Lululemon, pants, so it's almost like wearing shorts, I know you guys. I didn't even know they made that stuff for men, but it's the most comfortable thing when you're getting up on roofs all day. And you still kind of look professional in your polo,
You're just fancy, man. Lululemon is fancy, I mean, you got to get to a certain status before you can start shopping at Lululemon,
Well, I know you guys make fun of me. All of you, I think Rico was shocked to find out they even made men's clothes.
Oh, no, I knew it. I knew it. My mom had bought me, it's so funny. My mom had bought me a shirt from Lululemon, and I was like, man, this is really comfortable. So the first thing I did was I went over there and I looked at their pants, and I bought a couple pairs of pants there too because they're just incredible. Yeah. Super breathable, very stretchy, and very, very expensive as well, but very nice.
Yeah, but I mean,
unless you go to the sales rack
all day, you got to be comfortable.
Yes. Unless you go to the sales rack. So, what's up, expert? So, a lot of people say that they're experts. A lot of people promote that, hey, I can be your expert witness, but never have really even been a freaking expert. You, however, my friend, are officially an expert when it comes to estimating and claims. Tell me about your most recent experience as an expert in trial.
Yeah, it was, I guess I've called myself an expert in the past, as you said, right? And it it was actually confirmed by the court now that I could be considered and call myself a scope and damages expert. I think I've written almost 7,000 estimates in the 13 or 14 years that I've been doing this. As you know, I do them for both sides because some of my clients do carrier work. So I've been deposed a time or two in my time. So I think, I get like one subpoena a week at my office. So I've had a lot of depositions. Things have never, in every case I've ever been involved in, they've gotten settled. So I've never actually had to testify. But yeah, I got my first experience. My past what's called a Dalbert hearing, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, where the carrier actually tried to disqualify me from testifying. The carrier tried to remove me as the expert on behalf of the plaintiff. But they went before the judge. The judge agreed that I had the experience and the expertise to comment on the scope and damages portion of the estimate for the law firm. And it was an experience. I think it was kind of like a deposition on steroids is the best way that I could describe it. Because now you're dealing with, you're getting deposed. The most common thing that happens is you get objected to form in terms of the question, right? Just the most common thing you see in a deposition. But when you're in the actual courthouse, you're getting both sides are kind of throwing stuff at you. You got the judge interrupting you. You got the jury sitting there watching you that you're trying to connect with to see if they understand your explanation of why something's on an estimate. So, I was on the stand for about an hour and a half yesterday. And, I think it went well. I think I got my points across. There was really nothing major that the carrier's attorney was able to dispute in terms of the damages that I had on my estimate. I think, again, the biggest glaring thing that they kept trying to argue about was that I wrote a roof for a certain number, and the insured ended up actually spending less than what I wrote. So, it was not anything really of substance, to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, anybody can get a deal when they actually go to do the work. So, but it was an experience, and I can actually, I can bill now for every time anybody wants to depose me, which is extra nice. I've got some law firms that always used to get me paid as well, but now I have an hourly rate that's confirmed by the court that I'm allowed to charge for any of those depositions, and or my expert witness now. If anybody wants me to actually testify, I have an hourly rate that the court allows me to charge now as well.
That's fantastic. That's pretty cool. Moving up in the world, man. I said you're moving up in the world, huh?
Slowly but surely, yeah. So it's really funny. Like I said, I've been doing this for 13 years. I've never testified in court. I've got 4 coming up in the next month and a half that are scheduled to go to trial. It's all of a sudden, with the COVID stuff going away, some of these floodgates have opened, and attorneys are getting trial dates. So I've got 4 that are coming up in the next month and a half, where potentially I've never done it in 13 years, and all of a sudden I've got 4 in a month.
So in this case, was your estimate for the policyholder or for the carrier?
It was for the policyholder. The carrier went out, I believe, admitted coverage, but said that the coverages were under deductible. Denied the roof and the interior, saying that there was no wind created opening. Paid for some exterior stuff. Paid for 10 fencing posts, but nothing else related to the fence.
Wait a minute. It paid for the fencing post, but didn't pay for the actual fence.
Yeah. So the post, the post fell, and they could be magically reinstalled without apparently having to touch the slats on the fence, which is news to me. I've never seen that done before. But
is there at least a detach and reset on the slats?
Not even. Nope,
not even that, which is
slats,
bullshit too.
The rest of the fence did not exist. The post got damaged, but nothing else.
All the posts?
10 posts on the back and side of a fence got damaged, but nothing else happened to the fence. It also didn't help that the meteorology reports showed that there was 75-mile-an-hour winds, sustained winds for 46 hours at the property.
Is this an IRMA claim?
An IRMA claim that's been in litigation, but they said no. Hey, this was there's no wind-related damages at the property, and there was no wind-created opening. They're in trial today again. Today's the 3rd day of trial. I think they're going. The corporate rep for the insurance company was testifying today, and I think the rebuttal engineer was testifying today as well. So, it's still in process. We're going to find out later this week what happens.
I'm just surprised that they let something like that drag out for this long and taking it all the way to trial. 13 years I've been doing this, Mario. I've never been to trial.
Yeah, again, as I said, I've never been to trial. I mean, some guys make a living out of going to trial, but yeah, most things settle, I think, when you get to a reasonable number. But the carrier's position the whole time was that there was no one created opening. It's interesting because when we prepared for the trial, right? I mean, I've got about 12 hours of trial prep that went into reviewing documents, going over reports, all that kind of stuff,
Nice.
which is great. You get to bill for all that too,
12
right?
hours of trial prep. All right.
Yeah. I got to work, but I'll be honest with you. I worked on a Saturday. I worked on a Sunday. It interrupted your day-to-day family time, right? So I think you should be compensated for having to do that. I know the attorneys that are actually trying the case for the last week, they've been at the office till 2:00 in the morning. They're in court in the morning, and then afterwards they're going back, reprepping, repositioning themselves, and they're at the office till 2 or 3 in the morning while the trial's going on. So and they had the entire weekend of trial prep as well with engineers, the witnesses, the homeowner.
I wonder.
So it's pretty elaborate to see the process, right? You're almost getting to look behind the veil, so to speak, as to what goes into going through all of an actual trial. So it was interesting. It was a good experience. But yeah, some of it just doesn't make sense to me at all as to why they would not have settled this.
Yeah, that's a little weird. This seems like the kind of case that should have settled. I'm assuming that your argument for having an estimate that was higher than what the insured actually paid was just frank. It's an estimate. It is what it is. It's not an actual solid number, and he probably didn't replace the roof until a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years later anyway. So prices are different.
In part was that. Part of it as well is, listen, at the end of the day, we all use our different softwares to write. As you know, I write for both sides. So I write on Xactimate and I write on Stability, which are the two most common softwares used in the industry. And they're softwares that give you an estimated value, right? It's not set in stone. That software doesn't know day to day the roofing company that might come and offer you a deal, because guess what? They're doing 10 roofs in that neighborhood and they're trying to pick up an extra one. And for them at that stage, an extra roof doesn't have the same potential cost because they're already working in the neighborhood. So you might be able to get a deal from that person. But that's one of the factors that we put into it. And at the end of the day, I don't make up what the price is, right? We get the price for that roof based on the software pricing that's provided to us by the software, Xactimator Stability. It's based on the squares, and it's based on what the average cost is in that area by the zip code and by that month. So, they harped on the price, but really it was a meaningless argument, to be honest with you. It was not, why wouldn't you change it to $8,500? I said, well, once I found out that they did only spend $8,500, if I was asked to revise the estimate, we would have revised it. I think it was something that was conceded the entire time, that number is no longer applicable because they've already spent $8,500. At no point in time did anybody say, oh, we're arguing still, we want the additional $7,000. It was a moot point, was one of the answers that I gave them. I said, so you never asked for it to be revised.
Right. And I'm sure, like you said, it was already in negotiation talks, in pre-settlement talks or settlement talks. I'm sure it was already conceded anyway to say, okay, look, yeah, we've got an invoice and this is how much it was paid. No big deal. Well, that's what it is. We'll concede to that number.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So you said it's a deposition on steroids, because I remember, now obviously depositions are they just are what they are. But I remember my first deposition and maybe my second deposition where it didn't go as well as I wanted it to go. It went fine, but I was very nervous. I don't know if I was sweating or not, but I thought it was it was a difficult thing. And I'm always talking to new adjusters and I'm letting them know, like, don't worry, relax, be confident. It's a good claim. You have a good claim. You're not committing any kind of fraud. You're not doing anything bad. It's just a part of the process in litigation that you have to just go in there, complete your deposition, knock it out and be done with it. So it was nerve-wracking, huh?
It was. I remember my first one. I've probably got 100 depositions now under my belt, to be frank. So I'm no longer nervous about them. They're kind of like, I literally show up, I'm like, hey, good morning, and go through my entire spew, right? So it's something I'm used to. But like you said, I still know a lot of adjusters that are scared to do depositions. They're not ready for them. They're afraid that they're going to say something in that deposition that's going to be detrimental to their case. I'll be honest.
Understandably so.
Attorneys that have asked me to be deposed instead of the adjuster because the adjuster doesn't want to get deposed. And I wrote the estimate. So they're asking Mario, hey, listen, the case is going to fall apart if we don't have somebody get deposed. The adjuster, for all intentional purposes, is avoiding being served the subpoena. And I've had attorneys that'll be like, hey, I need you to get deposed.
I don't remember his name. The guy, he would always meet me in Coral Gables to serve me. And always the same guy. I can't remember his name because this was back in Miami. And it was always the same. And then just the other day, I had some guy, I was doing a podcast, I think. I was doing something. And there was some guy outside of my house just standing around, looking around. My wife drives in and she sends me a text. She's like, there's some guy that's just here standing around. I'm like, I don't know. So finally I finished the podcast. I went outside and it was just to serve me.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the nice things about, having the office, right? They don't bother me at home. We've got somebody who just accepts my subpoenas on a regular basis since I get so many. It's one of the main reasons I have an office and don't work from home is that you want not, because they'll just come and linger by your house all day long to try to serve you. But I mean, at the end of the day, I tell people all the time when they got to, do these depositions and stick to what you know, right? If you don't know, you don't know. I think a lot of times in depositions where people get themselves in a little bit of trouble is they start answering questions and making just assumptions, right? Oh, I think it was this, right? Listen, if you don't know what it is, say, I don't know.
That's it.
And guess what? They got to accept that as your answer.
Exactly.
So, I mean, now that I've done so many, I have one already. I have one scheduled for Friday. I've had 2 depositions and testimony this week. It's one of those weeks where you're like, I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything, because I'm spending more time behind the computer or arguing with proving my point. But
how many people you have on the team now, Mario?
We always have at least 3 employees on staff. I've got somebody in Orlando. I've got somebody that handles stuff in Broward. I've got somebody that will do stuff for me on the west coast of Florida. I obviously take care of Dade, and I'm the one that does any of the traveling outside of those areas that need to happen. What usually happens is I've got relationships with general contractors. So for example, when Irma hit, all work ceased, right? All construction projects, for all intentional purposes, stopped. So what typically happens is when a storm hits, I usually then can tap into 3 or 4 general contractors that, for all intentional purposes, work stops for them for a month or 2. And I use them as additional resources to be able to get to all the properties that we need to get to.
That's smart, man. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. You build relationships. As you know, that's what part of this business is, just that, building a relationship. And I got into this many, many years ago because I realized that you as an adjuster need an estimate, right? You contact the general contractor to write you your estimate for the damages. And what you get back is apples and oranges. Most general contractors will just tell you, we're going to charge you $5,000 to do the tile in your house, right? They're not breaking it down per room, per trade, per this, per that. So what ends up happening is when you go to turn that over to the carrier tells you, oh, I don't know what that's for. That's just too generalized of a number. So we're not going to agree to it because we don't know what that breakdown is for. And that's one of the reasons that I got into this side of the industry. I saw nobody was really doing this, right? So I learned how to write it apples to apples and write it so that when I'm writing my estimate at the end of the day, it's going to be the equal number that contractor is giving it to you at. But when you go to compare it now, it's written in the format the insurance company likes. And that's all it is. The insurance company just wants to use that as an excuse to not be able to write it the way you want it.
Pretty much. Why'd you get into this and you didn't become a PA?
I worked for a public adjuster for 2 years.
Okay.
I saw the process. I saw that there was a niche. I saw that I could do more of the estimating and appraisal work, which I think the appraisal aspect of this industry is, to be frank with you, quite easier. It's at the end of the day, when you're in appraisal, both parties are there to kind of just find a way to make this get resolved, right? It's less combative. I've learned over the years that the adjusters just on the daily stuff, when they're having to deal with getting the claim approved, that the monotony of all of that, you're dealing with guys that show up at these properties sometimes that really have no say into what's going to happen. Those guys are coming out and they're completely at the mercy of whatever an inside examiner tells them they have to put on their estimate. The case that I testified in yesterday, part of the issue is that the adjuster claims that the estimate that was finalized and presented to the homeowner was not his estimate. So that adjuster is stating that he wrote an estimate and the estimate was modified by the carrier.
There you go. It was probably chopped up.
Correct. And the carrier is stating that that estimate is work product and they're not releasing it even in litigation.
I got that email the other day. I'm like, could you please send me a copy of the engineering report that you guys did? I'm sorry, we're not allowed to release that. That's work product. I'm like, wait a minute. How would you like it if you're a homeowner? Don't you want? Actually, no, it was a mold person that they sent out. I'm like, the client wants to know if she's got mold in her house. Could you do me a favor and send that to me? Oh, that's work product. We're not allowed to release that. That's not the most gangster move. I mean, I don't know what is.
I don't know either. And I don't even know. I don't understand how that can be allowed in court. You know, like at the end of the day, I get it. But when you're in trial and everybody's got to show their card, so to speak, I don't get how you can just say that what we wrote that we modified is not admissible in court. It's not even in work product as to how we operate our business.
Not even in discovery?
Not even in discovery. What they ultimately do is turn in redacted parts of the photographs. And yeah, they don't have to turn it in. And it's protected by Florida law, which is crazy.
I wouldn't be surprised if the field adjuster actually wrote the fence.
I wouldn't be surprised if the field adjuster wrote more than that. So apparently the field adjuster wrote interior damages, but then the carrier advised that they did not see a wind-created opening in the roof, and everything was removed off the estimate.
Right.
And it's wild because in the actual, I think they messed up, and when they submitted part of their discovery, they submitted the photos that the field adjuster took, but did not retract the actual notes. So on some of the pictures that was submitted in as part of discovery, the field adjuster wrote wind created crack to the window, or wind created this in some of the photographs.
That's funny.
So the field adjuster acknowledged that there was wind based on his observations, but then everything else got removed except for the fence.
I don't understand somehow that they're able to get away with some of this stuff. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but so kind of, I stumbled upon this, right? I was doing it for another public adjuster. I worked with them for about 2 years. I got in with one of the attorneys, and I kind of just started to see that this industry was shifting. And this was back in 2011. And I just saw that more and more stuff was ending up at attorneys' offices. And these attorneys at times were also signing up claims themselves. And truthfully, when the attorney signs up that claim, great, he's got it, but now the attorney doesn't know what the damages are. He doesn't know what the numbers are.
Right.
And a lot of times they hire an engineer to be able to come up with that number, but truthfully, usually an engineer is pretty expensive.
Very expensive.
And I saw that there was a void. You know, not all of these files require an engineer. And I saw that there was this void where contractors are usually too busy, sometimes can be too flaky, write it in the format that the carrier didn't like. And I just saw, boom, I could do this and maximize on it. And then through that, I had already been doing appraisal work for that public adjuster because they were pretty busy at the time. And I got thrown into the wolves, so to speak, and just, hey, Mario, we got 10 appraisal files we need you to handle. Like, just go and argue about the damages. Initially, it was with opposing appraisers that they were comfortable with. You know, it wasn't somebody that they didn't know. They knew they were going to treat me fair. And I did the smartest thing I think I did with getting involved in this industry is I asked questions to the guys on the other side. I think a lot of times, we talked about this in the past, people look at the opposing appraiser or the opposing adjuster as an adversary. And they are to a certain extent, right? They're there to protect the carrier's interest and minimize their exposure and so on and so forth. But they're not necessarily bad guys. Not all, right? So if you start to talk to them, you learn, hey, here's some of the things that the carrier will approve. And if we can paint the claim in this fashion, it will help us get you paid.
Well, that's the thing is that I was explaining that to somebody yesterday, that we have to look at it in a different light. It was a new adjuster, and she's like, look, what did she say? She says, he's asking for a document that I already provided him. I think he's just delaying. I said, no. I said, maybe not. Maybe he's asking for the document because maybe he didn't get it, or maybe he wants to look at it again. Maybe he actually wants to review it because maybe he's now considering actually paying the claim. And then I had another adjuster was like, the reinspection, the dates that they were trying to schedule was going back and forth, and they couldn't figure out a date. And then he texts me and he's like, I think that they're delaying here. I said, dude, If he wants to go out and do a reinspection, let him do a reinspection. Reinspections are good because that means they're actually going to reinspect to see if there's anything additional that they could pay. I've never gotten less payment after a reinspection or after an appraisal. It's always going to be more. So it's like, no, dude, schedule it, find the time, get the reinspection done so that you can go ahead and do it. And like you said, these are people. I like people. For me, I know a lot of people hate other people because, people suck sometimes. But for the most part, I'm a firm believer that 99.9% of people are good. I do, deep inside. Some of them may have personal issues. Some of them may have childhood issues. Some of them may have issues at home. Some of them maybe it's just a bad day. But deep inside, most people, and I'm talking 99% of people, in my opinion, are good. If you could find a way when you meet an appraiser, a field adjuster, or you talk to a desk adjuster on the phone, you could find a way to tap into that. I have found that I get much further and I settle for more just by saying, hey, I had the longest conversation yesterday with a desk adjuster because she's about to go on vacation. And we were just laughing, man, just going back and forth. And we had a very pleasant conversation. And frankly, she got up to $33,000 of my $36,000 estimate.
What else could you ask for, right? It's a matter of, again, when we all start in this industry, we make mistakes. We don't know the right arguments to make, right? And that's part of why people, I think, are taking your course, because they see that there's the value to saying, hey, I'm going to learn from somebody that's been doing it longer, right? It puts you in an environment where you're potentially not afraid to ask those questions, because there's always that fear. You don't want to seem unprepared, or if you don't know what you're doing or something of that nature. So people sometimes have that natural fear to ask for help or ask for questions. So that's why I think the class is so great, because it's a stress-free environment. You can ask away. No one's going to judge you for asking. And the truth is, 9 out of 10 times that question you're asking, somebody else has already encountered it. Hey, here's what we did when we had that problem, or here's how I worked it around on this claim. And maybe this will help you figure it out with that adjuster. And I think that's part of the beauty of this industry. We don't have to be combative. There's going to be plenty of times that we don't agree. That's okay. Hey, if I've got my facts and I know what transpired and I've got the way to document it and I've got my pictures and I have my right team with the mitigation guy, the attorney, whatever it is that we need to build and prepare my claim properly, at the end of the day, whether it's the inside examiner, the field adjuster, the appraiser, or the umpire, someone's going to ultimately go, yeah, that makes sense. And you got to push the process to get to that point. And at no point in time, the more you frustrate yourself by thinking the other side is your enemy, it's just going to take you longer to get there.
I had a negotiation with a desk adjuster. He started off at $1,000 and I'm at like 40, I think. And I'm just like, he's like, but I want to get this resolved. And he goes up to like 5. And I'm like, Sam, I thought you said you wanted to get this resolved. Like, what? Right. Are you calling me to negotiate and resolve this thing? Or are you just like, what's the point? And we ended up getting 30, and we were just joking around. That's all we were doing. We were going through the estimate. He's like, I don't agree with this and I agree with that. I'm like, well, here's why you should agree with it. I said, if you want to take a little bit off of this, like the generals, that freaking generals is always the one, right? You don't deserve any of those generals. I'm like, all right, well, what if we cut that supervisor hours in half? What if we cut that dumpster, to a smaller dumpster? I'm not going to remove it because you know as well as I do that it may need to be used. And if it is, and I signed this release today, now my client's going to be mad at me. So we need to find a way to come to a middle ground here.
And that's one of the, right. And that's something that the inside examiners, desk adjusters sometimes don't want to agree to. That I always tell PAs, listen, if you have appraisal and you have alternate routes that you can get the finalization of the claim, just make sure that you get your claim approved, right? I always tell the PA your initial
$1
inspections, your initial whatever. Heck, then sometimes not even $1. You get an under-deductible letter.
That's fine.
That means the carrier's admitted that there's damage, right? Then it's a matter of figuring out the valuation and the actual cost of those damages. So I tell people all the time, I said, listen, you get $1 over the deductible, carrier's admitted damage. You get an under-deductible letter, the carrier's admitted damage.
Disclaimer, yes, please. People have asked me, oh, it's under deductible. Does that mean it was covered? Yes, absolutely. Just because it's under deductible, that actually, it's covered. That means it's a covered loss, so you're good. You could still go to appraisal. You could still negotiate with the desk adjuster and keep going further.
Yeah, you can still request a supplement. You can still request a reinspection, like you said, right? So it's part of the dance. And just know that, like you said, a reinspection isn't always a bad thing. It means, hey, it ended up back at that adjuster because someone's reconsidering what you kept asking for, and they either want to validate it. Yeah, they might be there trying to negate it, but you got a 50-50 shot now, right? Because they're coming back to look at it.
I think you and I, though, I think we take for granted of the experience that we've got and the confidence that we've got when we go into these inspections or these depositions or these appraisals, that is sort of like, it's like on a subconscious level in a way. For example, I had a reinspection for, well, we did that. You did the estimate for me on that one. The apartment, the one in Hialeah, the townhomes.
Oh, yeah.
Did the
That's right. I remember when you went back for the reinspection.
I did the reinspection for that one, and I brought along a sort of newer adjuster. And, you know, hit it off with the guy. We're just talking shop. We're like literally, we're not arguing at all, but we're just agreeing to disagree on different things. I'm like, that's cool, that's fine, but I need this, I need that, bum, 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 bum. After the inspection, he's just like, dude, that was amazing. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. All I did
You're
was...
like, what was? You're like, what was amazing? That's how we handle these things.
I just talked to him like a completely normal person, because, again, he's a normal guy who's had to take time out of his day. I mean, he's getting paid for it. But, you know, I mean, let's get along. Let's figure this out. Let's work together. And like I was saying earlier, the field adjusters, which is what I was explaining to somebody, I don't think I finished my thought on that. The field adjusters, and I guess the desk adjusters, but mainly the field adjusters, they're just like, show me something. Please show me something, anything. Like, I'm here.
Help me help you.
I'm a person, and I do want to help the person in the home or in the building. So if you can't show me any damage, what am I going to do? Like, and I remember when I first started, they're just like, show me something. I'm just like, I need to show them something. Where can I show? You know, they couldn't figure it out. But, you know, as you get better, you know, but yeah, help the adjusters, help you, help the client. You know,
well, I remember, I think you called me either from there or right after you left, and you were like, hey, send me the ESX.
Why?
Right?
Because I'm making his, like, imagine if he had to build that thing from scratch.
I know. I'm the one that built it from scratch. It would have taken him a couple hours to be there with you that day. So he was happy as can be that you were willing to help him have all the dimensions, have an estimate that was accurate in terms of, you know, I tell people all the time, sketch, right? I mean, you and I have talked about this. So many people just write an estimate. I get peer review stuff from attorneys sometimes, and it's just like they turn in an estimate to the carrier and it's 2 or 3 line items, or they've got rooms with no dimensions, you know, and the way they box it up, or they don't. And I'm just like, how is anybody going to know when they're reviewing this on the other side, the accuracy of what you're writing? Right? You've got a room and you just labeled it living room, and you're asking for 250 square feet of tile. Well, how do I know it's 250 square feet of tile? You've got no dimensions.
I've got no length times width times, I got nothing.
Nothing, right? So when you submit that to somebody, it's a paperweight. If that, it's going straight in the shredder. They're not looking at that. There's no value for them to compare it to. So you've given something in that's useless.
Why do you think, so I know you've said this before, you think that at least at the very bare minimum, you think public adjusters, if they're going to hire an estimator, should know how to scope and should know how to sketch. Do you really think sketching is that important, or are you good enough with the scope as an estimator?
As an estimator, I've been doing it long enough that I can do it off either one, right? So you give me dimensions, I can write anything you need in that room. Obviously, so that doesn't matter. I think the reason I try to tell people to sketch is usually the field adjuster that's showing up can't submit his estimate to the carrier if it's not sketched. So the carrier, no matter what that field adjuster does, if he does not submit a sketch with his estimate, he gets a rejection back from the carrier. I know this because I write carrier estimates. So anything that we write for the carrier has to be on sketch. So if I just give them dimensions, the estimate immediately gets rejected by the desk adjuster, and it's not valid. So that's why I tell people to learn to sketch, because it adds the value that you can potentially submit that to the field adjuster and make that interaction on site a little bit easier. Because at the end of the day, now the field adjuster is not going to have to potentially sketch the entire property again. Some guys still do. Some guys tell you, hey, no, I have to do it. Okay, cool. Everybody's got their process, right? But you're now trying to bridge that gap. And it's something really simple. It's like, hey, look, if you want the ESX, I've got it for you. if you want to verify dimensions. I've had appraisal files where I show up and I offer the guy the ESX, and he'll come in and say, well, let me just verify it to make sure that the dimensions are okay. I don't take offense. Yeah, hey man, no problem. I jokingly tell people, I'm like, look, if I'm off, it's by an inch or two, but if the room's 15 feet, I'm not writing it for 25, because at the end of the day, someone's going to verify it. So all you're doing is creating a false number, right? So we try to make the estimate accurate so that you could use it and everybody involved can use it. And that's one of the reasons these guys want you to do it on sketches, because they can't use it otherwise.
Yeah, so I think at a bare minimum, adjusters, there's too many PA companies, and I know this because the first company I worked for, we had like 2 or 3 estimators that worked in-house, independent contractors or whatever, and they would do everything for us. And after I left that company, I didn't know how to do shit. I didn't know how to do. Oh, and then the owner did the appraisals. There was somebody there doing the initial inspections. Basically, all I was a sales guy. And there's a lot of
compartmentalized.
There's a lot of PA companies that are like that, which you can't blame them. If you're an owner of a PA company, I mean, it's great. If you could hire somebody just to do the initial inspections, who's a licensed PA, who's experienced. If you can hire somebody to do the estimates. If you as the owner could handle all the appraisals because you're the one with the more experience, and you just hire a bunch of sales guys, that's great. You're gonna generate a lot of leads, but I don't think that's what it's about. I don't think that's what we
and
are.
As you and I both know, appraisal is about, at the end of the day, that relationship, right? So the more and more you do them, the easier and easier they get. I mean, I've had appraisal files. I just had 2 that I settled like a week and a half ago. We went back for the appraisal inspection. If I was at the house 10 minutes, it's 5 minutes too much. The opposing appraiser was someone I've known now for over 10 years. Literally walked in the house, took pictures in the affected areas, sent them my ESX for both files.
Done.
And I had the award back within a week.
I was so happy. I forgot when it was, but there was one day that we were talking about appraisals, and I had been saying that appraisals was so relationship based, and you had said it one time, and I forgot when it was, but I was just like, see, exactly. Like that's what it's about. Like appraisals are just, it's usually veteran guys or girls. But what I tell the new public adjusters also, I'm like, do it. Like just go. Like, pay your dues in the beginning. You're going to see a lot of the appraisers again and again eventually. And I mean, yeah, I got burned one time. And this is the other thing, is that people are all so afraid to go to appraisal because they're worried that once the appraisal award is signed, it's done. Same thing goes for a release, by the way. Same thing goes for if you go to litigation and they end up settling for half of your estimate anyway, or whatever it is.
Well, that's going to get really interesting now in July with the changes coming. So it's funny you say that, half of your estimate. That ball game is changing drastically, my friend.
I'm glad.
And the days of writing an estimate that doesn't make sense, I think you're going to be gone very soon.
I settled an estimate, an appraisal for a PA the other day for half of what he wrote, and he was totally okay with it. And I'm like, you shouldn't be okay with that. I mean, I couldn't get any more, but you shouldn't be okay with settling for half of your estimate. I mean, I truly really never settle for less than 80%. And that's an accurate estimate. That's me just saying, hey, you know what? Willing to give up a little bit so that we can get this thing resolved. You're
making concessions for the betterment of the claim to get it settled for your client, because cash in hand is better than waiting a year to get an extra $2,000 or $3,000, right?
You're making
a smart decision for your client,
or settle for the same amount.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, I tell clients all the time. I say, listen, I can go to the umpire, but the umpire is going to have additional fees, and at the end of the day, I'm arguing over such a minimal amount of money that it makes no sense. The net to you when it's all said and done might take an extra 6 months, and you're going to end up with the same dollar value. I
had that conversation yesterday with a guy, the exact same conversation. I'm like, look, we may get a couple thousand more. I said, but you're probably looking at another year because we're going to have to go to litigation. Or, you may get a couple $1,000s more in appraisal or whatever it is, or you may not, and you're going to have to wait a few months. I mean, this is a pretty good offer. We're pretty good where we're at. What is the new laws? Explain.
Well, there's some changes coming in now in July. I think some of it's been talked in your Facebook group about it. Some of the small changes are, requirements for cancellation of a contract and some of that stuff. Some of the advertising is going to change a little bit for the adjusters and roofers as to how they can solicit for some business. But I think one of the big changes that's coming down our path is for the attorney's fees. These attorney's fees are now going to be based off of what are they able to recoup based off of the estimated claim. So if you've got a $10,000 claim and the adjuster wrote a $100,000 estimate, and that claim settles for $25,000, to give you an example, well, guess what? That law firm is no longer entitled to their fees. So that's going to be a very big deal. The days of, like you just said, you gave me an estimate for 100 grand and I settled it for 50. That attorney is now going to evaluate and look at that estimate prior to entering into litigation, because it's going to affect whether they have an entitlement to fees or not. So it's pretty dangerous what's going to happen now. I think it's going to, you and I have talked about it a little bit off camera, right? That it, at the end of the day, I don't think it affects us, the way that we do our stuff. Because I don't think we write anything that's ridiculous.
You write what you see, people.
You write what you see, and you write the right way to fix it. I see a lot of estimates where there's a stain in the ceiling in a
100% ceiling.
And all of a sudden, the entire ceiling is being replaced, and so is all the walls.
And that's right. And remove and replace light fixtures.
So it's like, what? And you look at these estimates. I've got an appraisal file right now that I'm finalizing the settlement on it. And it was a big file, to be honest with you. We worked on it for about a year. It's a commercial claim from Irma that we basically are taking it from under deductible. The carrier was at, between the 4 buildings, I think they were around $90,000. And right now we're close to $750,000 in damages. But I got a $1.4 million estimate. And part of the issue that we're having is that $1.4 million estimate, some of the roofs have already been replaced.
For less.
So on the estimate, the roofs were at about $600,000, and the guy spent about $300,000 on one roof. Mm-hmm. When you total it up through all the roofs, guess what? My 1.4 just became 900,000. And I'm at 750. So now we're arguing over pennies, right? It's what are you gonna? I mean, it's not over pennies, but you know what I mean. You're arguing over minor damages, things to get to that 900,000. But the PA is like, well, I need $1 million because my estimate's 1.4. And guess what? You're never going to get there now.
And the problem was because they replaced the roofs for less than the amount that you wrote up.
Correct.
It's a very complicated. See, I don't think you have to deal with that much. Us as PAs, we get the question all the time from clients like, hey, can I do the repairs? Hey, can I do all the repairs? And I'm just like, I can't tell you no, because it's your home. Like, I feel so terrible if I were to tell you no. That's just not right. I said, but understand that, we are claiming all the floors in your house and a full roof replacement. And if you decide to completely gut your house and do it, I mean, that's going to be an issue. You're going to have to show me some invoices. I said, if you do a minor repair, I mean, that's okay. But if you just decide to gut your whole house, that's, and it becomes less than what our estimate is, that's what we're going to have to settle for. Plus, you're going to have to pay my fee.
Right. And at the end of the day, truthfully, I mean, it doesn't happen often because most people don't have the ability to do that, right? It only happens once in a while. But yeah, I mean, in the appraisal stage, sometimes people are like, can I make the payment just before this gets done? I thought, if you've waited this far to get to appraisal, all you're going to do is limit your potential settlement award. Because if you fix it today and I come back in a week with the appraiser and we were asking for 20 and you got it done for 10, you just took $10,000 off of my negotiating ability, right? Because maybe I wasn't going to get you 20, but maybe I can get you 15. And then I've got people go, oh, well, if they're only going to spend 10, they shouldn't be entitled to that extra 5. And I tell people all the time, but you don't know the other concessions I'm going to have to make as a part of that negotiation. So yes, maybe they're getting an extra $5,000 for something here, but I'm having to concede something else that they maybe should have gotten, but it's a negotiation. So maybe I got them $5,000 more here on something I couldn't have gotten them over, that I didn't get them somewhere else. And at the end of the day, you're balancing out that claim because it's a negotiation. And there's times that they overpay for stuff, but underpay for other stuff. So you're looking at the totality of the claim. Does that number make sense? And guys on the other side tell you this all the time, and I can't pay you for that. I don't know if you've heard that before. I can't pay you for that, but I'm going to make it up to you over here because I think I can give you this and this, and we're getting to the number that makes sense for you, right? And like you said, the supervisor hours. God, people argue about supervisor hours.
So annoying.
All the time.
It's annoying.
All the time.
Why would he's a contractor? Why would he need a supervisor? He's a contractor. Why would he need a supervisor? I don't know. Maybe he's got like 50 projects and he needs people to freaking look over it. Like, get out of here with that.
And it's, well, the argument that can also be made is it's not even necessarily for the contractor. You as the owner are entitled to hire an owner rep. And those supervisor hours can actually be given towards the homeowner hiring an owner rep to oversee the general contractor. So that's usually how I argue for the supervisory hours. I'm not arguing that the contractor is getting that money for supervisory hours. I make the argument that the homeowner is entitled to hire an owner rep to oversee the general contractor so that the homeowner does not have to be burdened with following up with that contractor on a daily basis to find out what's going on.
Ooh, I like that. That's good. That makes perfect sense.
So, yeah, and you're actually entitled to do so. There's certain municipalities that even actually recommend it. Miami-Dade County actually even tells you you're allowed to have an owner rep. So I use those supervisory hours towards an owner rep, not that the contractor's being paid to supervise the project. The homeowner's being paid to hire an independent person to oversee the contractor.
What about the bullshit that they say that roofers or roof replacement, they're not allowed to O&P? How do you feel about that? I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's one of those things that people argue about it all the time. I always make the argument that which is I think the least path of resistance. I don't know how that roof is going to be put on that house. I don't know if the homeowner is hiring a roofer independently or if the homeowner is hiring a contractor and the contractor is going to oversee the entire project and sub out the portion of the roofing to a licensed roofer. If the work gets done in that manner, the overhead and profit is allowed on the roof because it's being handled through the general contractor.
There's also a bunch of statutes too. There's
zero argument that can be made about that.
We've got.
I always find that to be the least path of resistance.
We've got a bunch of written stuff that we provide them and let them know, like, look, buddy, this is what it is. What it is.
Yeah, I mean, just I've been told now, and since we do appraisal and umpire work, right, you get to peel behind the veil and get some of the stuff that the day-to-day guy doesn't see. And we talk amongst the umpires, and we know what the codes are. Like a lot of the stuff that we see on the PPE stuff or the OSHA requirements, right? We get these estimates all the time that put all these OSHA stuff on there, and they'll add sometimes an extra $10,000 or $15,000 in value to an estimate. And it doesn't always apply. Some of the OSHA requirements that get put on there actually have nothing to do with rebuilding. Some of them actually are just for new construction. So they're not always.
Yeah, but safety. I mean, safety is important, and you gotta make sure that you're following those guidelines to make sure everything's safe.
And then a lot of the times they make that argument that, well, the OSHA requirements are truthfully only if the contractor pulls a permit. So technically, those OSHA requirements are just like the permit cost. Typically, you don't get the permit cost unless you show that a permit was pulled for the work, right? A lot of people make that same interpretation for OSHA. Those OSHA requirements are only if the licensed general contractor is pulling a permit for that job.
There's a guy that we met. He wasn't at Wynn. He was at the.
Like he told me it was in Galveston.
Galveston.
Yeah, we talked about it. You're OSHA specialist.
Dude, an OSHA specialist. And I was going to use him. I don't want to talk about it. I was going to use him on one of our claims, and they decided not to. I'm like, you're crazy. But anyway, he just charges like, a flat fee. And he's able to come up. I mean, he's like, I think he's like licensed. He's like level 38,000 something in OSHA or something, some crazy number. And he's able to come up with, a lot more money on your estimate that's perfectly legitimate and perfectly arguable and, needs to be paid in order to make sure that that roof that's being replaced or whatever work is being done is done safely and done properly, And I think that could become very valuable if you're trying to get as much money as possible on some of these claims that they're beating you down on. So, appraisals. I love appraisals, and people are always afraid of them. But I'm getting trouble now here in Florida. It's not like this in the rest of the country. Good for them. The agreeing to go to appraisal has been an absolute nightmare for me. Yep. I'm actually thinking, I've been telling Tammy that we need to change the way we request appraisal. Because in an email, it's like, oh, we expect to hear from you in 20 days. And then they're just like, you know what? Screw you. Next day, rejecting. And I'm just like, all right, let's not do that anymore. Let's maybe request it. Let's say, hey, look, what can we do to try to figure this out? We've tried everything already. Do you mind if we could please try this in appraisal? And I'm going to see how it goes because that's been very annoying. Because then I have to go to mediation, and I freaking hate mediation.
I think you go the route of trying to negotiate it, right? And when you get to that point where you no longer feel that there's any useful conversations happening with the other side, you say, look, your policy provisions allow for resolution of this claim through the appraisal process. I think we've reached our point of negotiations where neither one of us are willing to compromise any further, but we still feel there's large discrepancies that need to be addressed, and you invoke the appraisal process. Problem is, some of these carriers have now changed their language. I know Universal, for example, you can no longer just arbitrarily demand appraisal.
Right.
They have it in their policies now that it has to be agreed upon by both parties.
Not just Universal, it's most of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And Universal's trying to tell you, oh, nope, we're not going to agree to appraisal. We're going to go through mediation. And I tell people, the minute they tell you no to appraisal and mediation, you tell them, okay, we're going to send it to litigation and see what they want to do.
Yep.
I think that's I don't want to say the threat, but I think that's the route that you have to go if you're having issues with mitigation, with the appraisal process. Advise the carrier that you're not obligated to agree to their mediation. And if they don't want to resolve it through appraisal, then you have no choice but to go through the litigation process. And they're going to expose themselves to potential greater losses and fees.
Right.
But I mean, again, usually I think part of the reasons the carriers have strayed away from some of these appraisals is they know that these appraisers are doing the right thing. And these appraisers are willing to give things that they feel should have been given originally. And there's a lot of times that these appraisers, I just had an appraiser for a personal friend. He's actually an insurance company IA. And I handled the appraisal for him at his house. And it was a real simple matter. He had a shower pan leak. It affected a hallway bathroom or a bedroom bathroom. The engineered hardwood floors in the house got damaged. They wrote the bare minimum for the floors, no baseboards, no paint, like no content manipulation, none of that stuff, right? The kitchen cabinets sat on top of the engineered floors. It was also on the shared wall where the bathroom was, so there was some question as to whether the back of cabinets got damaged or not. But at a minimum, the cabinets were going to have to be detached and reset. Carrier didn't allow for any of it. The cabinets had quartz counters or marble, and they were glued on to the cabinets. So guess what?
We know what
You
that
can't
means.
DNR those cabinets. They're going to have to get replaced. But the appraiser that got appointed by the carrier, super nice guy, and I had only dealt with him once before, and truthfully had been like 4 or 5 years ago. So I knew him, but I didn't like know him. And we spoke on the phone for maybe about a 15-minute conversation. I sent him over the ESX with everything sketched. I sent him all the pictures that I had, and I sent him the pictures showing that you could see from underneath the cabinets that the stuff was glued on. I think the estimate that we prepared for the appraisal was for like $115,000. He came back a week later offering us $106,000. Never went to the house.
Oh, careful! Don't say that.
Well, no. I mean, he said there was no dispute on the items. All the areas were agreed upon, and you showed me with documentation that the cabinets are glued on. He goes, the measurements are right. He goes, the measurements, apparently the carrier had taken measurements of the cabinets, but not included them.
Of course not.
So he verified my measurements against the carrier's estimate.
Yep.
That he got a copy of. He goes, give us an offer. We settled the claim within a week.
Yeah, I remember when I first started, I used to just, even if the cabinets weren't damaged, if the floors were going underneath the cabinets, I'd put the remove and replace and all that stuff. And then I got to the point where like, you know what, the cabinets aren't damaged. I'm just going to put the detach and reset. And then I almost always put the remove and replace the countertops, but they always give me shit about that too.
Which makes no sense, right? I mean, and I say they're going to give you crap about it, but guess what? The appraiser is going to give it to you. Because most appraisers know, in what I always say, there's theory, there's book theory, and then there's the actual applicable way that things happen on the field. I was being deposed the other day, and I had the opposing carrier's attorney ask me, why are you doing 2 coats of paint? Oh. And I'm like, I know. But I said, ma'am, have you ever had to paint your house? I said, typically when you paint, you're always going to have to put on a second coat, right? So, and I use the explanation. In theory, it sounds great that you could paint everything with 1 coat. But in the practice, in the real world application, you're always going to have to put on a second coat. And I said, and by the way, if you read the manufacturer's suggested installation of their product on the back of the paint can. It suggests you put 2 coats of paint on. I go, so it's not that I want to put on 2 coats of paint. It's that the company who's selling me the product is suggesting that I put on 2 coats of paint.
I painted a house before, and trust me, I wish I could have just stopped at 1 coat.
Sometimes you can't stop at 2 coats. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4. Let's be honest.
Sucks. I hate
so it's like we want to argue over pennies sometimes that on stuff that it just doesn't make sense. And it's sometimes a pointless conversation because I tell people all the time, if the desk adjuster doesn't want to concede a coat of paint to you, you're going to get it in appraisal. You're going to get it down the road. So don't butt your head on something you're going to get later anyway.
But I think it's funny. The way you and I talk about claims, it's just way different than the way people on Facebook and people online talk about claims. Like they're just always they're always, is funny, is what I always find funny about when we talk about claims is they're always just like nitpicking about all these freaking line items and all these things and the kind of shingle and the this and that and all this crap. And every time I look at a lot of this stuff on Facebook, I'm just like, just talk to the adjuster and figure it out. Like, I don't think it makes that big of a difference. And then talk to the adjuster, figure it out, and then talk to your client and say, hey, here's what we got. How do you feel about this? And if they come back and say, well, you're the expert, I'm like, well, I think we're good. I think this is where we want to be. You know, and so if the client is happy at the end of the day, that's who you need to make happy at the end of the day. God, we should go through like
you have that different mentality, right? We talk about this. I think you're working on a claim right now where it's going to be they're going to get invoked the right for the vendor to do the work. And I think most PAs will just immediately run away from it and say, I'm not going to really make anything off of this. I'm done with the claim. Or they won't even sign it up at all. And I know you're still working on trying to make sure that even if they invoke that right to repair, that the homeowner gets taken care of, right? You're still trying to do the right thing for the homeowner because maybe you didn't make what you were going to make on this file, but by taking care of that person and making sure that they're taken care of properly, guess what? That person is going to refer you to somebody else. You're going to refer you to somebody else, and it's going to pay dividends down the road because you did the right thing for the homeowner. And I think sometimes people look at the claim in terms of, well, if I concede those things, I'm only going to make this on a claim, as opposed to, can the homeowner actually get everything fixed?
Can the homeowner get everything fixed? That's what counts.
You know, that's what counts. If I get this guy this amount of money, can he actually do what needs to be done? Or even if he makes a concession, if I'm making the concessions, can he take care of the majority of what needs to be done? Because at the end of the day, we all know that there's always things that can be
careful, because we can't talk like that because on social media, it's ridiculous. And then what happens is now we're going back to what we are. You and I have obviously a very similar strategy, and we're trying to get along with the other side. If you're constantly fighting, you're building up this animosity towards everybody on the other side. And in my opinion, it's just going to hurt you in the long run.
Yep. And listen, you got to be careful with estimates, right? I know that there's in some states that if you make modifications to the pricing on that estimate, and you don't have justification why you made that modification to that estimate, the state can actually charge you with fraud. Mm-hmm. There's some states that will go that route. So you've got to, I know guys go in and add extra percentages here and blow up the number this way. And I always say you can put anything, you can put pen to paper on anything, right? Just because I wrote $100,000 estimate doesn't mean that that's the damages that are there. So we always talk about you got to have a good narrative, you got to have a good story, but it's got to just make sense. And, I see stuff on these estimates sometimes where guys are removing it, then reinstalling it, then cleaning it, then sealing it, then putting it in new. And it's like, how many different things are you doing to this tile? And none of it makes sense.
Proof of loss. I was asked yesterday, hey, if I have a proof of loss of say $20,000 and things come up and we have to write for more, is that okay? I said, absolutely, that is okay. It's the other way around that you can't do it. If you write a proof of loss for $20,000 and then you decide that you're going to take stuff off or it's going to be lower than that, now you have the chance of getting accused of fraud because you wrote stuff in your original estimate that should not have been there to begin with. That's not good.
Yep. Yeah, it's got to make sense. And it's got to be documented, right? So like I did a claim where I was the umpire not too long ago, and there was stuff on the file in the claim that wasn't continuous, right? There was areas of the home that were included for damages to floors.
Line of
and
sight?
they were different, huh?
Line of sight?
Different materials. So it wasn't even the same flooring. It's not even so much that there was a threshold, is there was different types of floors. They were both laminate, but they weren't the same type, right? So like one had a pattern to it, one didn't. There were different colors, so it was like, I get it. You put stuff in your estimates because everybody wants to try to maximize the claim. But at the end of the day, like, the opposing appraiser is not going to give it to you. And an umpire is not going to potentially give it to you. So what you're doing is not creating a false narrative for that homeowner. Because if that homeowner sees your estimate at $75,000 and you end up settling it for 40, now not only do you got to explain why you settled it for 40, now you got to explain, why didn't you get me that extra money that you told me you were going to get on your estimate? And it just creates a more awkward conversation. And sometimes it creates a more difficult time to negotiate with the other side if you're trying to get things that are potentially unreasonable.
Yeah, and then I get it all the time from field adjusters when I'm talking. They always like my estimates. They always like what I present because what we see is what I write up. And they're always talking about, well, it's not like a lot of PA estimates that I see. At least I'm like, well, tell me about it. What are they like? He's like, Vince, they'll just write up the whole house just to write up the whole house. They'll just write up all the flooring, all the walls, all the paint, all the ceilings, all everything, and just throw it all in there. This is the reason why these laws pass, is because you've got your bad apples every once in a while. And, the insurance company and legislative, they want to just point this out as like a huge problem, which in my opinion, I don't think it's a huge problem, but they want to sort of make it look like it. And then they'll start passing these laws, and then it makes life a little bit difficult for a lot of people, but mainly for the bad apples, I would say. And I think we'll be fine.
Yeah. I think like one of the main changes that I think I kind of disagree with is the statute is what you can only have 2 years to open up the claim as opposed to 3. I think that could be potentially problematic for the homeowner. You get a lot of people that have no idea what's going on in their house until, an adjuster or somebody jumps up on their roof and says, hey, you got broken tiles or you got misplaced tiles. So that can potentially be complicated.
In fairness, after 2 years and people are signing new like IRMA claims, I was like, that's a stretch.
It is. It can be a stretch, right? I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes you've got elderly people. Sometimes the damages don't show up until you have one of these bad rainstorm again. And all of a sudden, those minor tiles that maybe shifted during a storm, that wasn't catastrophic. I'm not trying to tell you that the entire roof flew off and you didn't know about it for 2 years. That doesn't make sense. But there's many instances where, these tiles shifted. The water didn't originally penetrate through them being constantly beat for a year or two of the typical weather down here. You get another bad storm, and now that shift in the tile may have caused something to get exposed. And throughout that sunlight, throughout that rain, it starts to leak in. And then all of a sudden you go, oh crap, this actually happened back then. I didn't know. I didn't realize it. Again, did it maybe take you 3 years to figure that out? I don't know. Maybe it held up, maybe it didn't. But it's going to be difficult now for some of these homeowners to potentially open up their claims. But it's what always happened. The same thing happened in 2005. The pendulum shifts, right? Whenever you have a storm comes through, the carriers cry, oh my God, we're losing everything. We're completely going under because of the amount of claims that we're getting. And, I always say, you insured a house. You knew the condition of that home. A natural catastrophe happens. You come out and then you want to claim wear and tear on the roof. Hold on a second. You insured my home. You priced my insurance based on the age of that roof, and you were aware of whatever condition that roof was in. How is it that after the storm hits, now I have wear and tear, but I didn't 4 months ago when you insured my policy?
Can you tell me the difference between wear and tear and depreciation? Hello?
Right.
What the hell is depreciation if not wear and tear?
No. Yeah. So it's like, I get it, sometimes, and it's like you said, it's the bad apples, right? So I've gotten stuff where I'm, contractors, roofers are like, no, we'll take care of the entire claims process for you. And it's like the homeowner doesn't know what's going on. I had somebody the other day tell me that, the roofer was asking them for an AOB to handle the claim in its entirety. And I said, look, don't do that. You're not going to get paid. That money's going to go to the roofer, and you're going to have no control over your claim. It was somebody that was a friend of an attorney, and they called me because they couldn't get a hold of the attorney because I also knew the attorney. And I said, listen, hold off, speak to so-and-so, don't sign any paperwork. You're going to potentially jeopardize the way that you can get your claim paid.
Yeah, work authorizations are pretty common. That's okay. When the roofer goes, hey, look, you got your damage, you got this and that, we'll write up an estimate, we'll replace your roof only. But, when you get into the interior damage, you get into ALE, you get into personal property damage and stuff like that, that's when a public adjuster is going to be very beneficial,
100%. And you're referring to a work order from a reputable roofer. There's a lot of guys that put in AOB language into that work order. And if the homeowner doesn't read it properly, well, they thought they were signing a work order, but it's actually an AOB because the language in it
I saw that the other day.
gives them the assignment of benefit.
I saw it the other day.
Yeah. So, we make the assumption a lot of times that guys are just going to do the right thing, but there's a lot of people that don't. So it can get tricky for homeowners.
You sound like you're from Miami.
Yeah, it's Miami.
I had a comment on YouTube the other day. I forgot what video it was or whatever. And he's just like, be careful. You've got snakes in the water. And I'm just like, dude, I'm from Miami. I've been swimming with snakes my whole life.
I'm a snake charmer. Don't worry about it, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. So now that you're an expert, Mario, now I know you love appraisals. You're on my umpire list as well. I don't know. What's next on the horizon for Mr. Mario Rios, the expert not only in claims, but the expert commercial claims advocate as well?
That's right. Well, I think, joining this getting on this ride with you has been actually invigorating. You do this for a certain amount of time and it just becomes like a
monotonous
day-to-day thing.
Right?
Monogamous, right? I mean,
Yes.
It's exciting at times because I'm not in an office.
You said
You're
monogamous.
experiencing new claims,
it's
blah, blah, blah. But it's just became very mundane. It was the same thing every day. Being a part of this has been a little bit invigorating. It's helped me kind of find, I would say, a little bit of a new purpose.
Nice.
Where we kind of are doing more stuff amongst ourselves, right? We're collaborating more. We're speaking on a daily basis. Me, you, certain of the other people in the class will call me sometimes with questions. The water make guys. I'm talking to more attorneys on a regular basis. We've gone to a couple conferences together. We're networking with the guys on the other side. Talking to the engineers, and it just kind of lets us know that one, we're on the right path. Two, the path can be longer and greater than I think we originally thought it could be. I have the joy where I get to do stuff not only in Florida, I get to do stuff for people in California. I've done stuff for you and other people in Texas. I've done stuff in New York. I've written some things in Louisiana. So it's nice because you get to see the different way that claims are handled. And it's not the same in every state. There's different regulations in every state. There's a different process in every place. So you get to kind of get a greater idea of how things work. And again, I always like to try to know the other side, because the more I know about the other side, the more it's going to help us, help the homeowner, right? So I am the greatest thing that I think is, build relationships with the other side, man. Those are invaluable down the road. And that's what I'm looking forward to, is to continue to build these relationships.
I'm glad that you mentioned though, it's the same for me, man. Like starting all this stuff, the job does get a little bit just monotonous after a while, because it's basically every claim is different, but sort of the same. And I feel like after you're doing this for 10 or 11 or 12 years, it's just like, okay, now, because really I feel like the only way you go, it's different for you, but for PAs, is just hiring PAs. That's really the only direction you can go in, is to grow your business, hire PAs under you, and then that's pretty much it. But when we started this whole commercial claims advocate thing, now what we're doing is we're really giving back to the industry, really providing value to all these upcoming PAs. I remember when I asked one of the guys in our company, I'm like, what do you think? Would you be interested if someone were to come out and provide PA knowledge? Mind you, this guy's been a PA for 8 or 9 years. And he's like, honestly, Vince, he's like, I probably wouldn't watch a lot of this stuff. I probably wouldn't care to watch a lot of it. He's like, but it probably would be pretty valuable. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. We're just going to go for it. And it's been pretty fun, man. It's been really fun.
It has. It absolutely has. And again, the PA world can sometimes, especially if you're not working at a big firm, it's a little bit lonely industry, right? It
is.
Everybody's kind of fending for themselves. Everybody's competing for clients, so a lot of times guys only really interact when there's like an attorney that's putting together a seminar to educate you on potential changes in the industry. That's really the only time that I would see PAs get together.
I never went to I never went to any kind of conference or any kind of educational event or anything at all until I started doing this.
Yeah. And I mean, on the estimating side, right? Like there's nothing.
Oh, there's nothing.
There is really bare bones in terms of teaching you how to write these estimates. Most of the classes from the companies, like the Xactimates and Disabilities and stuff, it's teaching you how to use the software. But it's not teaching you how to write the actual estimates.
Exactly.
And I tell people all the time, I mean, I learned because I sat in these great building department classes, and you sit there and you learn as to how the building departments require you to do these estimates for the work, or how the contractors are required to do work. But there's no real estimate training programs on our side. And even I think the stuff that the IAs get, they are more, I don't even want to say that they're trained. They're more regulated in terms of what they can write.
For sure.
As opposed to being trained. Because a lot of the stuff that we write on the carriers, we get rejections because we replace the entire baseboards in a room as opposed to the 5 linear feet that are damaged, and they only want us to replace the 5 linear feet that they see that's visibly damaged. So they're not even being trained. They're being, I want to say, handcuffed in terms of what they can write. So as I'm sitting with you here, I actually saw that I got a rejection on one of my estimates for the carrier work. So I got to open it up and see what they want me to take off that they didn't agree with.
I like how you mentioned the difference between using the software and actually writing an estimate. Those are definitely two different things. I mean, writing the software is one thing, but making sure that, like we said, if the floors go underneath the cabinets, you're DNRing the cabinets, but you're R&Ring the countertops. You're replacing all of the baseboards when the floors go underneath the baseboards, because you're not going to be things like that you need to know from experience, from some construction knowledge and stuff like that are not just about actually using the software, but making sure you're putting in all the proper line items to get the proper settlement that you need. That's very important.
And guys on the other side, the good guys on the other side, well, actually, some of that stuff was taught to me. Some of that stuff was taught to me by the adjusters and the appraisers on the other side. Hey, Mario, look, when we do it, here's what we look for, and here's what I can get away with. And I don't want to say get away with, but here's what I can justify. Sure. If I could show it this way, the carrier's not going to kick it back.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's how it is with and that goes for the field adjusters. That goes for the preferred vendors that they've got, the mitigation companies that they send out, the preferred contractors that they send out, People's Trust and all of them. Like, all those guys are very limited on what they can do. And I mean, it's consistent work. And it's what I tell the field adjusters too, because now that I've got the YouTube channel and all this stuff, when I go out to the inspections, I'm like, dude, check out my stuff. Come on, come to our side. Come be a PA, man. I understand the consistent work, and for some people that's obviously very important, but man, it's got to be tough as a vendor, as a field adjuster, anybody working on the carrier side, when you've got to be so limited to what you're writing and what you're doing. The consistent work is good, but
I just wrote one the other day where we wrote for the replacement of the kitchen cabinets, and then after everything went back into the vendor, I was writing for one of my vendors as a GC. It goes back into the carrier, and the carrier says, oh, wait, by the way, never mind. You can't replace the cabinets. We think we can match them. Here's an estimate from the cabinet company that says they think they can match it. So remove all the cabinets off of your estimate, and you're only allowed to charge a $500 management fee. We're going to send out a company to try to match the cabinets. And I said, why are you even sending the contractor?
I had 5 linear feet cabinet replacement the other day and refacing doors, when there was like 12 linear feet of lower cabinets. So it was 5 linear feet and then refacing doors. It was just weird. I don't know.
Yeah, and I see it all the time too.
That takes more labor.
Sometimes if you reface it properly, it can be as expensive as replacement, right? You and I are just numbers guys, right? So
yeah, I know. But YouTube refacing cabinets, that is not an easy process.
No, and a lot of times the way that it's written, they basically just go, oh, we're just going to reface the cabinet. Well, no, all these cabinets that you're replacing need to be detached and reset. Mm-hmm. All the hardware needs to be reinstalled. It's not just based on square footage. You're going to have to add additional labor hours for the cabinet specialist that's going to come in to do the work.
That shit is hard,
If you're refacing it, you're going to have to figure out still what you're doing with that countertop. So there's times that if you do it properly, not just, oh, it's 30 square feet of cabinetry. We're going to reface 30 square feet. Well, hold on a second. That's not how you write it. You got to know the actual process. So there's times that I've conceded. Okay, cool. Let's reface
You
it.
make up for it somewhere else. Like you said, we're numbers guys. Let's just get to a number that we're happy with. I had one, the flood that we had. It was costing more in labor to detach and reset all of the knobs on the cabinets and detach and reset all of the outlets. Literally, the contractor that they hire is saying it's going to take us more time to detach and reset and save and not lose any of the little screws and this and that, as opposed to just throwing it all away and just putting new ones. It's just much easier for us. And that labor, literally, they're charging the association more money in labor to do that stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and there's times that, so a lot of times, let's say you're doing these kitchens and they argue with you about, hey, why are you replacing the P-trap? Or why are you replacing the angle stop and the plumbing supply lines? Well, guess what? You paid for the cabinets, right? It's all coming in brand new. Do you know what that contractor is going to tell you? I'm not going to warranty my work if I've got to use what was here before. So if I have to reuse those materials, I can't warranty my work.
Ugh, and just like all those, like just P-trap and stuff. I mean, used material. Like, come on, just put a new one on. It costs like next to nothing in Home Depot just to get.
The price difference is minimal. I mean, it really. Sometimes it's $15, but they want to nickel and dime you over $15. And well, listen, I can't warranty the work for the new cabinets. The contractor won't do it, so I need to have new materials for the plumbing supplies, and they usually have to give it to you.
Yeah. Well, Mario, thank you for coming on.
Hey, man, anytime. Thanks for having me on. I'll see you soon. I know we got another class coming up, and let's continue to help PAs make some more money and help clients, man.
Yeah, man. Remember, everyone, Mario is an expert in all sorts of ways. So if you want to hire him for expert services, he is the guy. And he's also an umpire. I would suggest that if you live and you are a PA in the state of Florida, put him on your list. And I mean, that's it. I'm going to do the introduction in the beginning anyway. Why am I doing that? I don't even know.
I don't know. Claim Preparation Experts is the name of the company. You can always find me through Vince. I'm easy to get a hold of. And we're always collaborating, spitting ideas off of one another when we got claims. So I talk to Vince a lot.
A lot more lately, too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Mario. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it, man.
All right, brother. I'll see you soon, man.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.